Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from Mercedes-Benz at Baton Rouge Studio downtown in the capital city on this Thursday. Working towards the weekend. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Got Jacob Beck and Jordan Kitchens back there on the ones and twos. And lots to do here on this Thursday. Luke Johnson's going to be with us talking Saints at 1:15. I've got three players to watch this spring on the LSU offense coming up. Chris Blair, the voice of the Tigers, will be with us at 2:15. Had to bump Joe Healey back. He of the SEC extra team over at D1 Baseball. He'll be with us at 2:30 to talk about the SEC weekend to come on the diamond. So lots and lots to do here. Lock us in for the next 2 hours. We'll start things the same way we start every day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
All right, Tigers on the diamond last night against North Dakota State, and 24 hours after LSU's worst start of the season, where you couldn't do anything right in the first 3 innings of the ball game, they paid them out to their best start of the season against a bad North Dakota State team. William Schmidt got LSU off to a pretty good start. And the Tigers sent 11 to the plate in the first and scored 7 runs. It was just an assembly line of good at-bats for LSU in the first inning of the ball game. Just a lot of deep counts, a lot of guys drawing walks, line drive hits. Stephen Milam hit a rocket down the right field line. No, into the right center field gap, I should say. And it was just a lot of really good at-bats against what we know is a bad North Dakota State pitching staff. They came into the 2-game set in Baton Rouge with a team ERA pushing 11. So you expected that LSU would score a ton of runs, and LSU did. I thought it was a big night for a few guys, specifically Jared Jones, who hit the 2 home runs. By now, you're very confident in that. And it's a deal where I, more so than the Jones homers, appreciate the quality of his at-bats game in and game out. And I say that because he's not trying to force it. He's hit some balls hard for singles. He's hit some balls hard the other way for singles and doubles. He has taken his walks. And then when he gets a pitch to drive, he's driving it. And it just happened that twice last night, he got pitches to drive that were out over the plate, hit the first one out kind of on a line to right center field, hit the next one out a moonshot to right center field. But I know Jared Jones can hit a ton of homers against bad baseball teams. I'm more so just speaking about his at-bats in their entirety for this pre-conference schedule. I've enjoyed his patience and his productivity altogether. Derek Curiel was phenomenal again in the game. 2 more hits, 2 more runs, 2 more runs driven in. He drew a walk, again, on base 3 times, was fantastic out of the leadoff spot, and they'll continue to pencil him in right there. I thought Stephen Milam was great once again, had the RBI hit and scored 2 runs there in the first inning. And then you had Chris Stanfield down at the bottom of the order who had a pair of singles. He scored a run and drove one in as well. So kind of all the way through the order, you're seeing some productivity for LSU right now, which is kind of what you would hope for and expect at this point, quite frankly. Jay Johnson has stacked this lineup with the feeling that he should have a couple of really good hitters coming up in just about every inning. And when you start things off with Derek Curiel, Jared Jones, and Daniel Dickinson, you feel really good about that. You've got Milam sitting there in the 5-hole with Jake Brown right behind him, and you've got Chris Stanfield at the bottom. You've got a bunch of guys throughout the lineup who are getting on base at a really high clip right now, that are hitting the ball really hard. So that was really, really good to see offensively. I don't have any qualms with the offense. You went out there and in 6 innings of offensive action scored 13 runs. You put up a 7 spot in the first, a 4 spot in the third, and then another crooked number, a 2 spot in the fifth. So you were good on offense really from start to finish in the game. That's not really my concern. And the pitching was not my concern last night, but I do think it's a more important storyline because it starts with William Schmidt, who is obviously such a precocious talent as a freshman. William Schmidt continues to go out there, and to me, he is a testament to the fact that with really good stuff, you can get a lot of outs. But right now, his stuff supersedes his command and his pitch execution. And that's what is keeping him from being dominant. Now, let me press pause. I don't expect him to be dominant right now. I expect him to go through some growing pains as a young pitcher. But he's also pitching out of those more often than not. I'll give you an example. Yesterday in the game, in the second inning, William Schmidt did not command his pitches very well. So you go to the play-by-play of the second inning, and he starts things off on a rocky note, okay? And it's evidence that, like, the good stuff that he had there in the first inning is not necessarily with him in the second inning. And so you look up, and all of a sudden the first two guys reach base. Davis Hamilton singles, he moves to second on a wild pitch, and then you walk Colton Becker. So you give up a single, you've thrown a wild pitch, and you've issued a walk. Nate Yeskie comes out to the mound, and William Schmidt gets a strikeout of time and long. But then he follows that up with another walk. So you've got the bases loaded with one out, and it's really self-inflicted. You've issued a couple of walks, you've thrown a wild pitch, you haven't done what you needed to do with your stuff in this inning, but you can still get out of it. And he gets a strikeout. And if you're just looking at the box score, you would go, look at that. Look at the kid. He's struggling with command a little bit, but he goes to 3-2 and he gets the strikeout. Big pitch. He didn't really execute the pitch. It was a fastball. It was high and outside, and he got a fortunate swing and miss. Luis Garcia bailed him out there. And then he throws a wild pitch and plates a run. And it's the only run he gave up. But in that inning, you threw two wild pitches, walked two guys, and hit a guy. That's the type of stuff that you've got to tighten up if you want to be a weekend arm in the SEC. And I believe that he will. But again, the same thing I said on Monday. I'm grading this LSU team on a championship curve. I'm grading William Schmidt on a tough curve. And he's been great. He was good last night. Last night was a positive outing for William Schmidt. No question about it. 4 innings. He only gave up 2 hits and the 1 run. It was earned. He struck out 7 and walked 2. He was really good, but he had a bumpy second inning. I love the fastball. It was 95 miles an hour. I love the breaking ball. That's always going to be there. He spins it as well as anybody in college baseball. And then one thing I really liked was the changeup he threw to get out of the third inning. That was a gorgeous straight change. And if he can throw that pitch effectively, look out. So I know there are a lot of people that are clamoring for change in the weekend rotation. Ionson's not dominating. Ionson's getting hit around. That's a guy they're going to have to move Shores up to Saturday, and Schmidt's going to go into Sunday, or Ware's going to go into Saturday. Like, I hear all that. I'm not there. I like these spots for William Schmidt right now. And I thought last night he did a really good job, but it wasn't quite as clean as you would hope. But that's to be expected for a freshman. I'm going to point out more things with him because of the immense talent, because of the expectation, and because of what we all truly believe he's going to be. I don't know if that's going to be 2 weeks from now. I don't know if that's going to be 6 weeks from now. I don't know if that's going to be next February. But we all think he's going to be a superstar at LSU. I certainly do. So for that reason, you're kind of nitpicking a little bit, and that second inning was bumpy. He got a little bit fortunate. I don't think an Alabama hitter, a Texas A&M hitter, a Tennessee hitter extends the zone on that strikeout. Then all of a sudden, you're walking in a run. You've still only got 1 out. You're throwing a wild pitch, and it could unravel a little bit. But you got a little help, and he made that count. He did a good job through 4 innings. I thought that was really good. Jacob Myers with a pretty standard Jacob Myers inning there. That was in the 6th inning. He walked 3 and didn't allow anything else. He walked the bases loaded, but got out of it because his stuff is good enough that it's going to give teams at this level a lot of issues. Grant Fontenot came in and got hit a little bit, did walk a runner, walk a hitter. So it was the back end of the bullpen just trying to get past this one. And now you turn your attention to one last pre-conference weekend against a bad North Alabama team. LSU should handle their business this weekend. And then we can finally point towards SEC play and really see what this team is made of. I thought last night was very positive offensively. Some very positive things for William Schmidt. There were some concerns on the pitching staff. They still threw too many wild pitches. They still issued too many walks. I don't want to see LSU in 7 innings allow 7 walks. I don't want to see as many wild pitches as you saw. Schmidt threw 2, Myers threw 1. I don't want to see the hit by pitches. Schmidt had 3 of those. Fontenot had 1. Like, too many free bases. Same issues you saw back in Frisco that have got to be cleaned up, but you're not talking about the very front end of your rotation when you're talking about some of this. And LSU's defense was error-free a night after some really poor defense that you saw from LSU. Some of that was from the pitchers, but you had a pop-up you didn't call in foul territory, and there were some issues on defense, specifically behind the plate last night. I thought LSU cleaned a lot of things up in the game on Wednesday. They played better defensively, and overall, it was a pretty quality outing for the Tigers, who moved to 13-1 moving into the final pre-conference weekend. North Dakota State will get on out of here. They are 1-11 on the season, and I tend to believe they're going to be a bit of an RPI drain. But Jay Johnson disagrees. He thinks they're going to win a ton of games. He knows a lot more than me, but we'll see whether or not that does happen. That's our Genesis opening drive, brought to you by Genesis of Baton Rouge. When we come back, Luke Johnson talking some Saints on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is the website. Every single car that's on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. How about some of the features when you purchase a new Genesis? 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. 10 years, 100,000 miles. 3 years of complimentary maintenance. 3 years is a long time. I can vouch for that. I've got a 3-year-old kid. It feels like a long time. To have complimentary maintenance over that span, that's a really good thing. And it's complimentary valet maintenance as well. They'll come get your car. They'll bring it back to the dealership at Airline and PQ. They'll do the service work. They'll leave you a loaner. Then they'll bring it right back to you when it's done. You get on your way. It's convenience. It's luxury. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge, the only fully exclusive Genesis dealer in the state of Louisiana. If you're in the market for a Genesis, not sure about the Genesis lines because you've never been behind the wheel or in one, that wouldn't be shocking. A lot of folks haven't. Check them out at Airline at PQ, right across from Women's Hospital. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge, online at genesisofbatonrouge.com.
At Bayou Automotive, we believe in a sales process that puts you first. We want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram be your trusted partners in finding your perfect vehicle. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
You gotta believe in a dream. Believe. You gotta believe in a dream. Believe. You gotta believe. My whole team on wild.
When you can't rely on technology, you can rely on Mountain Cold Refreshment.
Dave's back on.
Coors Light. Choose chill.
You work hard every day to pursue a life you love. You put in the time, and it shows. You're forging ahead, chasing a dream, creating something better for the ones you love. You're building your own life. So why not build your own tractor? With John Deere tractors and attachments for almost any need, the Sunshine team can help you do just that. Check out our current promotions and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
At Bayou Automotive, we believe in a sales process that puts you first. We want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram be your trusted partners in finding your perfect vehicle. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you. Crime has serious consequences, but anyone can make a mistake. If you find yourself in trouble with the law, know that you have rights, and it's okay to demand them. The law offices of O.C. Brown are here to protect you and your rights. Felony or misdemeanor, DUI or drug charge. No matter what crime you're accused of, you still have rights. Let the law offices of O.C. Brown uphold them. Call 225-343-1111. Your law firm for a lifetime.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood Subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
At Ochsner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Ochsner Andrews.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Working towards the weekend, Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Luke Johnson, good enough to give us his time on Thursdays. He covers the New Orleans Saints for The Advocate. Joins us on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Luke, how are you?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
It is our pleasure. How was your Mardi Gras, Luke? It appeared you were having quite the time.
Thank goodness that Instagram account is private. I was having a great time, man. It was really good. Yeah, all jokes aside, I mean, like it was cool doing it with my daughter, who's going to be turning 2 in May. This is like her first time, like really getting what Mardi Gras was about. So that was a lot of fun. And then I had one solid day to myself where I didn't have to worry about being a dad.
I like to hear that as well. Glad y'all enjoyed your time. All right, Combine is in the rearview mirror. Coaching staff essentially kind of put to bed here. So where does your focus with the New Orleans Saints turn to at this point in the calendar?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, it's how they're going to get under the cap, and not only just being compliant. Like they're going to be making a lot of moves, I think, because they want to be more active in free agency than they were last year. They only signed one guy last year to more than a 1-year contract, and that was Cedric Wilson. It's not like exactly something that's going to break the bank. I would expect them to be a little bit more aggressive this year, which means not only are they going to have to clear the $40 million to be compliant, they're going to have to clear more than that to be able to sign players. So I mean, we should have a pretty good idea in the next 36 to 48 hours as to like who they're going to whose contracts are going to touch. I think there's probably only like 8 or 9 guys in the roster who they can really truly restructure to create space. I would expect most, if not all of them, to get done. And maybe some guys taking pay cuts as well. There's just going to be a lot of moving parts in the next couple of days.
They're always going to get under the cap. They do it every single year at this time. But generally speaking, when they were doing that over the last, before 3 years ago, you thought they were trying to build toward a contender. And I think most people from the outside feel like that's not necessarily the case right now. So when a Saints fan hears that they're going to spend some money and gets a little bit nervous that may continue the issues with the salary cap moving forward, what would you say to that Saints fan?
I mean, I would say those are valid concerns. I think a lot of people are just like, why don't they just hit start on the rebuild and eat their medicine and just kind of deal with a rough year or two. But I think, I don't know. I think there's always a sense when you're around a bunch of competitive people that you're just like a couple of good moves away. You're a really good draft class away from being relevant again. I don't know if I agree with that, but I think that's kind of where they're at right now. So I don't really know how to answer that, because I think if it were me, I'd be doing this a little bit differently. But unfortunately, they're making a lot more money than I am to make these decisions. So that's kind of the path they're going to take. And who knows? I mean, like we've seen teams be in this kind of like non-competitive, middle ground, irrelevant place, hit on a draft class and be, a contending team within a year or two. Like it can be done, but they've got a pretty like limited needle to thread here.
Obviously, they cut Jamal Williams. That doesn't save him a ton of money, but it does save him just a smidge. Is there anybody else that you would look at that they may terminate a contract here or there to save cash?
I don't think they have like a lot of really appealing options for that. It's just because of the way they've managed the cap in recent years. It makes it hard to just cut somebody and recoup some cap savings. The only guys you really look at are guys like Colin Saunders or Cedric Wilson, and those are moves that are going to save you like maybe $2-3 million. The biggest chips they have are the restructures. They can clear up $31 million by restructuring Derek Carr. They're going to have a $70 million Carr issue next year on the salary cap. But yeah, I think that's something they're going to live with if they want to be not only compliant but in a position to add. So there's not really a lot of then cut this guy and recoup some savings. It's just not what they have on this team right now. But I do expect a lot of restructures, maybe some pay cuts, and see where they go from there.
Is there a position or two that you feel like they'll be more aggressive than others in free agency, or is it just kind of if they find a really good player?
Well, I mean, I think my whole take on this is that they have so many spots at this roster where they need help. Where if they feel like they can find somebody who they can buy low on and maybe get some really good production out of. I think like the Willie Gay signing last year, right? I think that was a pretty good roll of the dice, like $5 million on a guy with good traits who's been a good player in the NFL. Obviously, the role didn't pan out for him last year here, but that's kind of the sort of signings I'd expect them to make. And if I'm looking at this team, I think one of the sneaky needs that I don't think they can just count on the draft to address is corner. It's been a really solid area depth-wise within the last couple of years, but you look at who they have under contract right now, it's Alontae Taylor and Kool-Aid McKinstry and not much else. It's something that I think they're going to need a lot of help at. So I don't think there's a corner that you can look at in this draft and be like, yeah, we want to take him at number 9, like a surefire, top 10 lock type of player. I think it's a little bit more deep in the the pass rushers, offensive linemen in this draft. So if that to me is an area you can address in free agency, and maybe one of those kind of the bendy, undersized edge rushers that they've never had on this team under Dennis Allen. Maybe you can find one of those in free agency that can help you out. But again, they're going to be limited with what they can do. Even though they want to be more aggressive, they just aren't going to have the space to make a big splash signing.
Do you think that Paulson Adebo's injury makes it more likely that the Saints could re-sign him?
No, I don't actually. I think he's pretty well recovered from that. From what I gather at the combine, it was an injury that was a terrible injury and ended the season, but it's not like something that requires this big long rehab to come back from. It's just kind of a clean break, and he's healthy now. And the fact is that you don't really see 25-year-old corners who have a good history of production at the NFL level reach free agency very often. He's going to have some suitors, and I think that's going to make him tough for the Saints to bring back.
That's fascinating. Tyrann Mathieu is a guy that it was potentially reported that the Saints could move on from. Do you expect him back?
I do. I just think it's the conversation's the same with Tyrann as it is with Demario Davis and Cam Jordan and Taysom Hill. It's moving on from these guys is not really going to get you much in terms of flexibility. So really, if you move on from them, it's just because you don't want them on your team anymore. And I think Tyrann's still a good enough player to where if you're going to be paying the $9 million in cap charges, regardless of whether he's on your team or not, you might as well just keep him there because he's still good, and he's also just an important person to have in the locker room. So I'd be surprised by Tyrann. I think there's a chance that they could try to approach Cam or Taysom on a pay cut. I don't know if they'd be open to that, but Tyrann took a pay cut last year. Demario took a pay cut last year. I'd be really surprised if they got them to do that again. So I think that to me is pointing toward Tyrann being back. But we'll see. We'll see what this whole staff thinks of these players as players. If they move on from them, it means they don't think they're good enough players to be on the roster anymore.
What do you think about Chase Young's market on the free agency scape?
I think it'll be a little bit better than last year because I think he put some of the health concerns behind him. I think that was really the main thing working against him last year. He's not the superstar player that everybody thought he was going to be when he came into the NFL. But I think he's still a good player, and he's still really young. I think he's only 25 or 26 years old. So there's going to be interest in him, and I think he'll get a multi-year contract. It just won't be the $25-30 million deal like everybody was anticipating he'd sign eventually when he was the defensive rookie of the year. I think it'll be probably closer to what he made for the Saints last year, somewhere in the $13 to $15 million range, but more than 1 year on it because he's shown he can be healthy.
Quarterback's the last question I'll ask you. Derek Carr is the big headline here, but do you feel like there's a pretty good chance that they go to week 1 next year with Derek Carr, Spencer Rattler, and Jake Haener and nobody else?
I think they might add a veteran backup, but I don't think it'd be like a name. I think they'd probably feel pretty comfortable with Rattler as the 2, and I don't really see the point in going out and adding somebody like let's just say Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
If you already feel comfortable in your 2, and most teams don't even carry 3 quarterbacks active on the game day roster. I guess it would depend on what Kellen Moore's thought about the whole thing is. Do you want to be in a situation like they were in last year where your starting quarterback gets hurt and then you're just basically tanked for the rest of the year? Do they feel confident enough in Rattler to go win games as opposed to just developing on the field? I think that's the only way they bring in a veteran to be the true backup while they develop. But I think I would lean more toward just keeping Rattler and Haener as the 2 and the 3.
News never stops on the NFL level. You're looking for your Saints news. No better spot than Luke Johnson with The Advocate at By Luke Johnson. He's with us on Thursdays. Appreciate your time, man.
Appreciate it, buddy. See you.
We will. We'll see him very soon. It's an interesting time I'm less interested, quite frankly, and we'll talk about it as it happens. I'm less interested in the actual players the Saints bring in one by one. I'm more interested in what the plan looks like, because we don't really know right this second what the entrance to this Kellen Moore era is going to look like. I think most people I've talked to that are fans of the Saints want the Saints to pull back and try to get into a little bit more advantageous salary cap situation, but the Saints aren't willing to do that more often than not. It looked like entering the last season when they only signed a couple of guys to 1-year deals, kept thinking Willie Gay, 1-year deal, Chase Young, 1-year deal, just kind of keeping things between the buoys, not doing anything crazy. But you restructure Derek Carr and kick $70 million down the curve, and then you start adding guys that are 30 years old to your roster for big money. Start converting bonuses and stuff. All of a sudden, I'm going to sour pretty quick. It's that just feels to me like continuing to swim upstream. Now, if they continue to go out and sign guys on 1-year deals and they let some of these contracts come off the books and they don't do anything drastic with Carr, so you've got an off-ramp with him and you feel like you might be closer to the full reset where you can finally breathe, that will be encouraging. I realize that's not a lot of fun as a fan to sit through, but if you're trying to get back to a championship level, it feels like you got to change the way you're doing things. And that, to me, is the story into this now roster composition portion of the offseason. Do the Saints take a different path? And I'm curious to see whether or not they do that. So our Saints coverage you can find on YouTube, Hunt on Saints. Also anywhere you find your podcast, Hunt on Saints. Anywhere, again, you find your sound, you can search Hunt on Saints, and you can find it all year round. We'll come back, talk some LSU football. 3 guys on the offense to watch in spring football. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is that website. Jonathan Carver and his team, fantastic folks to work with in the insurance game. There's always another hurricane season right around the corner. The time to think about dealing with that is not when there's one out there in the Gulf and there's a moratorium put on all new coverage. The time to think about your insurance policy, specifically from a property perspective, is right now. Call Jonathan Carbo and his team and see if they can't help you placing your property in a different market. They've got dozens. They're an independent broker, so they can find the best market for you. And maybe it's a situation where you've got to do a layered program. One company's got to take this, one company's got to take that, one company, and you layer it up to get to your limit. If that's the case, Jonathan Carver and his team can do that. They are experts when it comes to the technical aspects of the insurance game. If you're a business owner, you'd like to learn more, it's Highland Insurance Group. You can find them online at HighlandIG.com. That's HighlandIG.com.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Auctioner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
At Bayou Automotive, we believe in a sales process that puts you first. We want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram be your trusted partners in finding your perfect vehicle. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared toward seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
Crime has serious consequences, but anyone can make a mistake. If you find yourself in trouble with the law, know that you have rights, and it's okay to demand them. The law offices of O.C. Brown are here to protect you and your rights. Felony or misdemeanor, DUI or drug charge. No matter what crime you're accused of, you still have rights. Let the law offices of O.C. Brown uphold them. Call 225-343-1111. Your law firm for a lifetime.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Family owned and community driven.
Service Chevrolet Cadillac, a legacy you can trust since 1972. Service Chevrolet Cadillac, our family serving your family.
For over 50 years.
Looking for the ultimate game day experience? Come to the Queen Casino in Baton Rouge. Wall-to-wall TVs mean you'll see every touchdown in HD. Place your bets and feel the thrill of every...
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
LSU spring football right around the corner. They will crank things up out on the Ponderosa. Saturday, we'll be there when available to give you some practice reports over at louisianasports.net and certainly here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. But yesterday I gave you 3 defensive players I would have my eye on in the spring football window. Today I give you 3 offensive players that I'm going to have my eye on for different reasons in said spring window. I kind of led my piece on louisianasports.net with this. When you talk about entering spring football, same thing with the defense, but we'll move it to offense today. Like, you've got your play caller back. That's the tip of the spear. And then you've got your quarterback back. So from that perspective, you've got a lot of continuity at the top end of your offense. There's a lot of moving parts around those 2 guys, but those are the 2 guys that set the tone entering the spring and make it, to me, kind of hopefully a little bit of a boring spring from that perspective. You're not installing a new system. You're not breaking in a new quarterback. You've got those 2 guys who had their first shot last year. I think it went well. You could disagree. Certainly they had their issues in the second half in College Station. Certainly they had their issues against Alabama. I wouldn't call Florida a banner day. I think they had their issues in the opener against USC as well. But I think those 2 guys in their first seasons, Joe Sloan calling plays and Garrett Nussmeier at quarterback, were good. They need to be better. If LSU's going to be a championship-level team this year, both guys need to be better. Nussmeier's got to take care of the football a little bit better. Sloan's got to find a little bit more consistency in the running game. You need to just be a little bit more consistent overall. But those are the 2 top guys on this offense. You move down to the people around them, and there are 3 guys that I want to watch. We'll start with Josh Thompson. Now, Josh Thompson comes from Northwestern. He has started there for a couple of years, started 11 games at right tackle in 2023. This past year, spent the season when he wasn't hurt at right guard. He's 6'5". He's 300 pounds. He's a bit of a tweener. And so this is the issue with Thompson, and this is maybe less about Thompson and more about the guys around him, in fact. But he feels a little bit light to play guard and maybe a half step slow to be an elite tackle. He's kind of a tweener. I think he's a proven starter in the Power 4, and I think he's going to play where LSU needs him to play. So whether you want to say that Josh Thompson has to have a big spring in his 5th year in college football, or you would rather point to Tyree Adams and or Weston Davis to say those guys need to have a big spring to move Thompson inside if those guys can man the tackle spots, that remains to be seen. But you understand that the offensive line is a huge focal point in spring football this year. Honestly, Brad Davis is probably the most important guy here. But Josh Thompson, as a former starter at Northwestern, a guy that Tennessee wanted, a guy that Ohio State was in on, a guy that Auburn wanted, a guy that LSU got, he's going to factor in, but where? And I'm very curious once we get out there for some of the individual and then into the team periods where Thompson is working out. We may not find out our final answer here in the spring, but you can at least get a look at where they feel like he can help them most. So Josh Thompson is my first guy that I would go to here. Nick Anderson is number 2. I'm really excited about Nick Anderson, but I still feel like this is a big spring for him. Nick Anderson is 6'3", 6'4". He runs really well. 2 years ago, he had the Oklahoma freshman record for touchdown catches, had a monster season in Norman with Dylan Gabriel as the quarterback. Here's the deal. Barian Brown and Chris Hilton can fly, but they're 6 feet tall. Kylan Billiott's 6'3", but he's never caught a pass in college. Anderson's the only guy that comes in with the size, speed, production profile. He's it. So most people in that situation, it's his 4th year in college. He's already proven he can do it. Like, this would not be an important spring for most juniors, redshirt juniors who have already been there and done that. But look at Anderson. Played 1 game last year and no games 3 years ago. 2 years ago, great, 10 touchdowns. But he's basically played 1 out of the last 3 seasons. That's one reason he needs reps. 2, he's learning a new offense. That's a reason he needs reps. 3, he's got a new quarterback that he's got to learn to catch from. That's important. So you're talking about a guy who hasn't played a lot, learning a new system, breaking a new quarterback. Nick Anderson needs reps in the spring. Needs reps with Garrett Nussmeier in the summer. Needs a fall camp full of reps because he is still getting up to speed. Now, I talked to Brandon Drum up there in Norman, who covers Oklahoma and covered Nick Anderson for 3 years, and asked him about the injury that kept him out this year. And it was a weird deal where it was like a hip, and then it was a quad, and they weren't really sure. And then he tried to play in a game, and then he didn't play, and then he sat the rest of the time. And like, nobody that I've seen, I talked to him, I've read on I don't know what the injury was. I honestly don't know. I realize that's not awesome from the guy who covers the team to not be 100% sure, but I tried. I tried to read. I tried to talk somebody up there. I'm not really sure, but I'd like him to be healthy, and I think we'll see whether or not he is coming up in the spring. So number 1 is Josh Thompson. Number 2 is Nick Anderson. Harlem Berry is number 3. Harlem Berry is a guy that LSU has recruited for almost 5 years. He's here. You've got a running back room that's got Caden Durham in it. He's the lead back. Then after that, it's Caleb Jackson. Trey Holly's not here. You don't have anybody from the portal. Josh Williams is gone. It's kind of JT Lindsey and Harlem Berry. So there are plenty of reps to be had. And Harlem Berry needs to get them because, 1, he's acclimating to college. 2, he's coming from a low level in Louisiana high school football where he's going to have to acclimate to the speed of the game a little bit. And 3, LSU staff's got to figure out how to use Harlem Berry because this is a guy that has, and trust me, I'm not comparing them apples to apples. This is stylistic. It's not production. We're talking about a Heisman winner and the 2nd pick in the draft here in Reggie Bush. But I think most people suggest if you played Reggie Bush in the slot at USC, he'd have lit it up. Like, I don't want to put Derrick Henry in the slot. Same type of accolades that Reggie Bush had in college and then into the pros. Better in the pros, significantly. But different style. I don't want Leonard Fournette playing in the slot. I don't want Caden Durham playing in the slot. Harlan Berry could play in the slot if he wanted to, by all accounts. He's incredibly athletic, incredibly quick, smooth in and out of breaks, can catch the ball. Do you want to get that involved in a big way? Show that in the spring. Not to us, but to him. Do you need him to get more physical and learn how to run between the tackles with 300-pounders in there on defense, which he did not see at St. Martin? Well, this is a time to do that. You've got a chance where Harlan Berry came to campus in December. So he will have been on campus for almost 10 months when he plays his first game at Clemson. I think it's a big spring for him as well, and a big spring for the staff to figure out what is his best role in the offense. Is Caleb Jackson going to be more involved than he was last year because you feel like you've got a more downhill running game that fits his style better than last year? Or is Harlan Berry the second back and you move Caleb Jackson back a little bit? Or is there a situation where you want to get Jackson on the field with Caden Durham? There are a lot of different things you can do with him. So to me, these are the three biggest spots. Like I could tell you for sure Tyree Adams, Cohen Eccles, Weston Davis, even DJ Chester moving from center, we think, with Braylon Moore coming in. Like, there are a lot of guys up front that I could talk to you about. I can talk to you about Barry Brown learning how to play in a functional offense. I could go to Bauer Sharp needing to improve on what he did last year at a spot where he's going to be asked to play a lot. I can go to Trey'Dez Green, who's going to go from freak athlete who made a few catches to potential focal point in the passing game. Like, there are a lot of guys on this offense that you could point to and say, hey, I need that guy to produce, and let's see a big spring from him. But these are the three that I picked out. Josh Thompson, where does he fit on the offensive line? Nick Anderson assimilating to a new school, new offense, new quarterback coming off of injury. Need him. And look at Harlan Berry. What are they going to do with the 5-star running back from the New Orleans area? You pair those three with the guys that I talked about on defense yesterday. That's Patrick Payton on the defensive side. That's DJ Pickett on the defensive side. That's Dominic McKinley on the defensive side. There are a lot of guys at LSU that need to have big springs. These are the guys that I have pegged at this point. If you want to read about it, you can at LouisianaSports.net. Beck, what do you have to say about these young fellows that I picked up in spring football? I know that spring football is not a big deal, and I honestly believe that when we go out there and cover it, it's pretty damn boring. But I do think that there are some guys that need to take some steps this spring.
Yeah, I can't remember. We did a article after the transfer portal trying to just everyone gave their opinion on who they thought the most important transfer was. It's hard to go back and find it on the website because it was so long ago. But I'm pretty sure I had Nick Anderson just because you're losing so much production, and so you're going to need somebody to step up. And I think Nick Anderson is going to be that guy. I mean, we like you said when we talked to Brandon Drum about him, he just had all positive things to say and thought he was a really good playmaker. Just got injured, so I think he's gonna be the guy that has to step up and really produce in that second or third spot for the receiver.
We'll see. They're not giving us the robust access to spring ball that we have gotten over the Kelly era, specifically in the fall. They have let us watch a ton of fall camp, which quite honestly, in August, like, I'm all about giving us some access to fall camp because there's a lot of content to be had there. In the middle of March Madness and baseball and women's basketball making a push and all that kind of stuff, like, this can get buried a little bit, especially when you give us 20 minutes of guys running around cones. That's not a ton of content that we glean from that. But I'll have my eyes on these guys, and I'll bring back some reports when we have an opportunity to go out there and check out spring practice. Again, they'll crank things up on Saturday out at the Ponderosa. Let's take a timeout. We'll come back and close out hour number 1. It's a Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
At Ochsner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Ochsner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Ochsner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
Crime has serious consequences, but anyone can make a mistake. If you find yourself in trouble with the law, know that you have rights, and it's okay to demand them. The law offices of O.C. Brown are here to protect you and your rights. Felony or misdemeanor, DUI or drug charge. No matter what crime you're accused of, you still have rights. Let the law offices of O.C. Brown uphold them. Call 225-343-1111. Your law firm for a lifetime. At Bayou Automotive, we believe in a sales process that puts you first. We want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram be your trusted partners in finding your perfect vehicle. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
Family owned and community driven.
Service Chevrolet Cadillac, a legacy you can trust since 1972. Service Chevrolet Cadillac, our family serving your family.
For over 50 years.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
At Bayou Automotive, we believe in a sales process that puts you first. We want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram be your trusted partners in finding your perfect vehicle. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Wrapping up hour number 1 here. I was just scrolling through Twitter about 20 minutes ago, and the folks over at 64 Analytics have got some college baseball stats up, and they put a screen grab up that honestly caught me a little bit by surprise. Beck, I don't think you've watched every pitch LSU has thrown, but you have a general feeling of how the season has gone to this point, player by player. Give me a reasonable answer if I ask you how one guy was doing at this point.
Yeah.
Stephen Milam's got 54 at bats this season. How many strikeouts do you think he has?
2.
1. 1 strikeout and 54 at bats.
That's pretty good.
Now, look, here's the deal. And this is going to be something that I talk about a lot next week. LSU was in a very similar spot last year to where they are now. We talked about this with Koki Riley yesterday, and I could make the argument the offense has been more complete than it was last year and all that well and good. But LSU, they lost a game to Stony Brook last year, but for the most part, they were really good in the pre-conference. They went to Houston, dominated, played great, crushed Rice, swept 3 games in Astro Stadium. It was good. It looked really, really good. And then the bottom fell out when they got to SEC play because you played really good teams. You played Mississippi State on the road. You played a really good Arkansas team. You played a really good Florida team. You played a really good Tennessee team. Like it was tough. And you haven't seen that yet. So we're not really sure. But a statistic like that makes me feel pretty good because I understand the level of pitching that you're seeing, and it's not 96 and it's not a lot of wipeout breaking stuff. But to have a guy go up there and hit the ball hard as consistently as Milam has, and he's hitting 370, but to not swing and miss and to have good at-bats that consistently and not strike out ever is encouraging. And we saw Stephen Milam at the end of last year be awesome. Like, we know what he's capable of. But the other piece to this discussion, when I talk about Stephen Milam, who's hitting 370, who's only struck out once, who's hit the ball out of the ballpark twice, and who's got 4 doubles and has come up with some really clutch hits, which he did back on Tuesday. And then I pull up the lineup card, and Stephen Milam is hitting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th. And then you go down and you look at Chris Stanfield, who's hitting 9th, who was in the leadoff spot and led Auburn in multi-hit games last year. The length of this lineup feels like it's legitimate. I'm not here to stamp the flag in the ground just yet. I need proof of that concept 4 weeks from now over one more non-conference and 3 SEC weeks. And at that point, I'll probably feel like I can sit here and tell you with more certainty what we've really got here. But I'll tell you this. I would rather Daniel Dickinson be hitting 391 against these garbage teams than 265. Doesn't mean he's going to be able to hit SEC pitching. We haven't seen it yet. But you face the best pitching you've seen thus far in Frisco, and he hit the ball really hard and hit out of the ballpark. So I'm not talking about Jared Jones. He's a given. I'm not talking about Josh Pearson or Michael Braswell. You kind of know what those guys are. And Milam's got a track record. But I love the fact that that statistic pops at me, the 1 strikeout. I didn't realize that. I think I've watched almost every pitch. But that's an incredible go of it. And you're not hitting him first or second. He's down in the 5 hole. And it's part of this, and now that I've heard Jay say this a few times, I start to look for it. This deal where I want us to, every inning that you see on the due up when they go to commercial break, every inning, you should look at that and go, okay, they got a pretty good chance to score. He doesn't want to see an inning where you've got the defensive catcher who's hitting $190 and the defensive center fielder who's hitting 225 and the big slugging outfielder or DH who has 11 home runs on the season, but he leads the team in strikeouts. Like, he doesn't want that inning to come up. And at this point, you don't really have that. Speaking of few strikeouts, like Jake Brown is in this discussion as well. Jake Brown has 35 at-bats this year in a little bit of a platoon situation. He's started 10 games, played in 14, but he's got 35 at-bats, and he's hitting 343. He's only struck out once in 35 at-bats. That's a guy who doesn't have a proven track record. That's a guy who last year started a lot but didn't hit. Look at his SEC statistics from last year. They're not good at all. He was trying to make the adjustment from two-way guy to pitcher to back to hitter, and like it just he wasn't great offensively last year. But he's a great athlete. He's a good defender, and they trust him a good bit. And now you're looking at a guy who, through 35 at-bats, has 4 walks, just 1 strikeout. He's got 3 doubles, and he scored 10 times. He's been very productive, and that's not a guy at the top of your order. It's the length. It's the depth. It's the consistency. All that's very, very important, and I think LSU has done that to an extent. This entire conversation is, of course, framed by knowing the competition level has been terrible. Omaha's bad. North Dakota State's bad. Purdue-Fort Wayne's bad. Like Southern's bad. Like you're playing bad teams. I get it. But I'd rather it look like this to start than the alternative. Ask the folks over in College Station. It can go south in a hurry. And you saw it last year, right when they started SEC play. So I'm encouraged by some of that. And I just honestly wanted to point out the fact that Stephen Milam and Jake Brown have struck out 1 time each. So that's 2 in how many bats? Can I do quick math on the air? 89. Got it easily. So, look, 89 at-bats, 2 strikeouts for those two guys. That's pretty good considering just about any collegiate competition that those two guys have been able to hit the ball that consistently. So that's a little look at LSU baseball here to close out hour number 1. Excited for hour number 2. Got a lot to get to here. Chris Blair is going to join us at 2:15. Voice of the Tigers. We'll talk a little bit of basketball, but mostly baseball with Chris, as the basketball team's got 1 game left to play in the regular season. Joe Healey, D1 Baseball, is going to be with us at 2:30 to set the stage for another weekend in the Southeastern Conference, the final pre-conference weekend. I know that Joe Healey and his whole staff over there at D1 Baseball had extensive conversations about who the number 1 team in the country should be. Should it be LSU? Should it be Tennessee? We'll get Joe's thoughts on that at 2:30, as well as a little snapshot of what's to come this coming weekend. So if you missed any of the first hour, catch it on demand. 1045ESPN.com's on-demand tab, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google. Wherever you find your sound, you can always find us. Search Hunt Palmer Show. Like, subscribe, rate, and review. That helps us a ton. We'll step aside for Sports Center and come back with the second hour of a Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, AVSSLA.com is that website. Check them out on Instagram. AVSS_BR is their Instagram handle. And it's got great examples of some of the work they have done. They've got man caves. They've got outdoor kitchens, pool house areas. They go out and do decks if you've got a property on the water, whether it's your primary residence or secondary residence. They can handle all of those types of things for you, and there are examples of some of the great capabilities that they have at their Instagram pages at AVSS_BR. I can promise you I'm not telling you a lie because, look, the folks at the Parade of Homes agree. They awarded AVSS the People's Choice Award for the best vendor at the Parade of Homes. Give Mitchell Fisher a call. It's 225-439-7920 for all of your audio, video, and security needs at home. It's Audio Video Security Solutions online at AVSSLA.com.
At Bayou Automotive, we believe in a sales process that puts you first. We want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram be your trusted partners in finding your perfect vehicle. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Auctioner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
Crime has serious consequences, but anyone can make a mistake. If you find yourself in trouble with the law, know that you have rights, and it's okay to demand them. The law offices of O.C. Brown are here to protect you and your rights. Felony or misdemeanor, DUI or drug charge. No matter what crime you're accused of, you still have rights. Let the law offices of O.C. Brown uphold them. Call 225-343-1111. Your law firm for a lifetime.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood Subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Family owned and community driven.
Service Chevrolet Cadillac, a legacy you can trust since 1972. Service Chevrolet Cadillac, our family serving your family.
For over 50 years.
At Atmos Energy, our Smart Choice solutions help customers save energy and emissions with rebates up to $500 off high-efficiency natural gas appliances, smart thermostats, and weatherization upgrades. Together, we're fueling our energy future.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right.
I'm Doug Brown. Yankees right-hander Luis Gil will be out at least 3 months with a lat strain in his right shoulder. Infielder DJ LeMahieu will be out several weeks for New York with a left calf strain. The Lakers host the Knicks tonight. They've won 7 in a row, and ESPN's Quentin Richardson is not surprised by the success of new head coach J.J. Redick.
I truly believed that he was going to be a good coach because he worked so hard at it. I've never not seen him work his butt off at anything. And he knows the basketball game inside out. One of the smartest IQ players I ever played with and things like that. And his attention to detail is second to none. So I felt like he was going to do well.
Quentin Richardson on game night. Mavericks assistant Alex Jensen is now the new head coach at the University of Utah, his alma mater. Jensen was the Mountain West Player of the Year in 2000 and played on 4 NCAA tournament teams. ESPN's Field Yates reports the Browns will again restructure quarterback Deshaun Watson's contract. It's a move that will create almost $36 million in cap space for Cleveland.
Hey, it's your resident Super Bowl champ Chris Candy coming up Friday. Legal tampering is right around the corner, so I'll tell you which players and teams I'm keeping an eye on. It's Unsportsmanlike, weekday mornings at 6, right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour 2, Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Chris Blair in 15 minutes, Joe Healey at the bottom of the hour. Talk some Tigers with Chris, some SEC baseball with Joe. Looking forward to all of that. It's spring football time around the Southeastern Conference, and I am certainly not going to dive into the all 22 of all 16 SEC teams. But the SEC did, the ESPN, let's try that again. ESPN did put up a preview of all 16 SEC spring football campaigns, and I just want to kind of pluck one or two things out of each of them very quickly as we move forward. I believe they're in alphabetical order. Yes, they are. So it starts with Alabama, and it's interesting what Kalen DeBoer can do in year 2 because he went 9-4 in year 1, and nobody there is going to think that's humorous or acceptable in any way, shape, or form. This was the most obvious happening to forecast. Whoever filled in for Nick Saban was never going to be able to live up to that standard. And I'm not suggesting Kalen DeBoer can't win the SEC this year or sometime soon. I'm not suggesting he can't compete for championships at Alabama. I'm not telling you he'll never win one. I'm just telling you it's not going to look like it did. And Matt's been saying that forever, but anybody with a reasonable mind knew that was going to happen. It's impossible, nearly, to stay at the very pinnacle of the sport 14 years. And Kalen DeBoer's not going to do that. And he certainly didn't last year. Kenny improved this year with Ty Simpson at quarterback, Austin Mack, who was initially signed with Washington, and DeBoer. Then you got Keelan Russell, the freshman they're all excited about at quarterback. What does that look like for Alabama? I think that how this season goes in Tuscaloosa is going to be really fascinating because most people think if they lose 3 or 4 games that DeBoer may be out because they're just not going to sit around and tolerate that. They're unreasonable, they're unrealistic, they're entitled, and they won't tolerate it. And I'm curious to see if it happens. Let's go to Arkansas. Beck, I don't like Coach Pittman's chances. I'll tell you why. They should have fired him 2 years ago. They didn't because it would cost too much money. And now you're looking at a season where he's still the coach, you still don't have any talent, and this is what their schedule looks like. They have road games at Ole Miss, at Tennessee, at LSU, and at Texas. They also have home games with Notre Dame, A&M, Auburn, and Missouri.
Their schedule was crazy last year, and so now it just flips from home and away, and now it's even harder. So, yes.
Coach Pittman.
Not good.
Will collect a large sum of money before Christmas this year. That'll be good for him. He can get out on the lake and drink some cold beers. Speaking of folks that aren't winning very much, Hugh Freeze is 5-7 last year at Auburn. That dog is not going to hunt. Now, they're recruiting really well. The question is Jackson Arnold any good? Like, that's the question everybody is now going to have to ask when you talk about Auburn. Nobody thought Peyton Thorne was the answer. I certainly didn't. And it didn't look like at Oklahoma last year in his second year in college that Jackson Arnold was the answer. Now, was that just such a toxic situation that no one can excel in it as bad as Oklahoma was on offense last year? I don't know. I've seen Hugh Freeze win with less talented quarterbacks than Jackson Arnold. But that's probably going to be the guy that they lean on. And, well, you got Cam Coleman and a whole host of good wide receivers out there. They got to make that work. But all three of those coaches that we just talked about right off the top, Bama, Arkansas, and Auburn, all under some fire this year. And then we get to the next guy on the list, and that's Billy Napier. So it's just we looked at the Southeastern Conference this year, and correct me if I'm wrong, but nobody lost their job this past year. Everybody kept their job. Well, now we're on school number 4 here, and they all may lose their jobs if things go sideways. And I'm 100. I will say with 100% certainty, one of these guys is not back in 2026. Now, I would bet a lot of that would be on Pittman because I don't think they have any chance against that schedule. But it could be any of them. And Napier is the next guy. Now, DJ Lagway, we found out yesterday in the afternoon, is going to be held on basically a pitch count here in the spring. He is the golden hope for that entire operation in Gainesville. Without DJ Lagway, this thing ceases to exist. Billy Napier would have been fired last year if Lagway didn't save things down the stretch by beating LSU and Ole Miss. Now, he did beat LSU and Ole Miss, so let's see if he can build upon that. But again, you're at LSU, you're at Miami, you're at Texas A&M, you're at Ole Miss, and you play Georgia away from home. It doesn't get a lot easier for the Florida Gators. Georgia, 3 losses. Lost 2 regular season, lost 1 in the playoff. They don't lose 3 games a lot with Kirby Smart at the helm. Carson Beck moves on, and as always, you're going to lose a lot of folks to the draft. They lost 4 offensive linemen that are going to have to protect a new quarterback. So I think that there's a lot of rebuilding that has to go on, and we all kind of just thought after Georgia won 2 titles in a row and probably was the best team the year before that, but got tripped up by Bama in the title game, and they didn't have the schedule to get in, that, well, Georgia's still going to be the best of the best. They're the team that nobody can beat. They're the team that's going to go on this crazy college football run, and then they lose 3 games, and it's like, okay, are they as infallible? Like, it's still not Saban. It's Kirby. I'm not at all thinking that Georgia's going to fall off a cliff here, but, like, 3-loss season is going to let a little bit of doubt creep in at least. We'll see if they can restock the shelves. Speaking of coaches that are embattled, Kentucky went 4-8 this past year. They can't move the ball at all. So how do you rescue that? I don't know. What I feel like is probably unlikely is that Zach Calzada shows up and rescues Tennessee football. And if you're thinking to yourself, wait, that guy? Yeah, that guy. Texas A&M, Auburn, and Cardit Word, Kentucky. And they've tried this import a quarterback thing year after year after year. It was Levis, then it was Leary, and then this past year it was Vandegrift, and now they're going to try Calzada. Who knows? But I have very little confidence in Kentucky is going to get this thing righted, and I don't know that they're entirely interesting in the spring either. Jeff Levy at Mississippi State, 2-10. They lose Michael Van Buren, but you're going to hope that you get Blake Shapen back and that he can play some quarterback. He missed the last 8 games last year. Missouri won 10 games last year. Is anybody buying what Drink is selling? Beck, are you buying what Drink is selling at this point? I mean, that's back-to-back 10-win seasons.
I don't think so.
Why?
They had an easy schedule.
Okay, that's true. Lose Luther Burden. Brady Cook moves on, and they bring in Bo Pribula, who drew a bunch of attention because he wanted to jump in the transfer portal when Penn State's trying to compete for a national championship. Well, he ended up at Missouri, but you've got to got to replace your playmakers, and that's obviously something that is going to be more difficult at Missouri than a lot of places in the SEC because it's tougher to recruit to Missouri. But I'll give Drink a little bit of credit at Missouri for winning double-digit games back-to-back years. We took that for granted in Baton Rouge forever and ever with Les Miles, and it turns out sometimes it can be tougher to win 10 games. Oklahoma, Brent Venables on the hot seat. How many hot seat coaches can we have in this league? He wins 6 games last year. They bring in a new coordinator from Washington State, bring in John Mateer from Washington State, and can they rescue things? They don't get any favors with the schedule. We know that. You still got to play all those teams that you had to play this past year. You got to play Ole Miss. You got to play LSU. You got to play Alabama. You got to play Florida comes in. You got to play Tennessee in Knoxville. So it's tough. You got to play Texas. Like there's a lot on that plate for the Sooners. I don't think it's going to work out with Brent Venables. Those are my 2 cents.
Yeah. How about over under SEC coaches fired next season 3? Over 3. So you think there's going to be 4 coaches, 4 SEC coaches fired?
That's only a quarter of the league.
Yeah.
I mean, Pittman, yes.
Yes.
Venables, I feel pretty good about.
Billy Napier only if, Lagway doesn't,
And then I think, how many games Kentucky going to win? 5?
Yeah, but they like Mark Stoops there. I don't think they're.
He took the job at A&M.
Well,
then
yeah,
came back and won 5 games.
I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right. They're probably not too happy then.
Yeah, it's just I can't. That Bloom's probably off that road. He struck while the iron was hot. He struck while Florida was a mess and Tennessee was a mess and South Carolina was a mess. And then you had Mississippi State's your permanent, and they did what they could in a window where they could do it. And I don't foresee it being.
So how many do you have now? Is that 3 or 4?
I mean, I've gone through 6 that are possibles.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Hugh Freeze is going to get fired, but screw up, you can. I don't think Kalen DeBoer is going to get fired. Lose 4 games and watch what happens. Ooh. Lose that Iron Bowl and see what happens. And they're not infallible anymore. They got the same uniforms on. They play in the same stadium. They're with everybody else now. They were in a dogfight with everybody last year except LSU. So it's just not the same. So I can get there pretty quickly. South Carolina's interesting. Went 9-4. Got Sellers back. They'll come to Baton Rouge. Tennessee won 11 games. Is Nico ready to take the next step? Do they have the pieces on defense? Texas is Arch Manning's time. Texas A&M. Mike Elko loses 4 of their last 5 down the stretch. I saw a good interview with him today where he was talking about they got to put more players in the NFL. They got to get more NFL players to College Station. I'm just curious. Do we think Marcel Reed's the answer? He looked great against LSU running around.
You look good against LSU.
Running around, but we'll see. And then your boys from Nashville.
Anchor down.
They will not be making a bowl this year. I will say that with confidence.
Yeah, they will.
They will not. They went 7-6, best season in more than a decade. First bowl since 2018, beat Bama. Don't think that's going to happen again this year.
All right. Well, they're not going to lose to Georgia State like they did last year. How about
could.
That? They're not going to, because they're not.
Let me look at their schedule. This is what we need. Charleston Southern, tough team to play.
Ooh,
no, they're fine.
That's a nail biter.
They're at Virginia Tech. They won that one last year.
They won that one.
You think they're going to win that one this year?
I think so.
That's spooky.
They got Georgia State again this year, but they don't have to go to Turner Field.
They don't have to go to the Braves.
They don't have to go to Turner Field. But they got listen to Vanderbilt. They're at Virginia Tech, at South Carolina, at Bama, at Texas, at Tennessee.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Plus LSU comes to them. And that's really the only really tough home game they've got.
That schedule's brutal, though.
I know. Brutal. I don't count Auburn and Kentucky as being that difficult. Missouri, maybe.
No.
That schedule's brutal.
They can win 6 games.
All right. Give me win or loss, Jordan, for Vanderbilt. Then we'll get to Chris Blair. Charleston Southern.
Win.
That's a win.
I'll give him a win.
At Virginia Tech.
That's a loss. Early season loss.
At South Carolina.
That's another loss. It's derailing already.
Georgia Southern. Georgia State.
We're back on track.
Utah State.
We're back on track.
At Bama.
Oh, that's smacked. They're smacked.
LSU in Nashville.
LSU, please do not lose this game. I'm going to go get that.
Missouri in Nashville.
That's a loss.
At Texas.
Ooh, blowout.
Home against Auburn.
They're crying at this point, but they might squeeze it out. I'm on offense about that. I'll give them the dub. I'll give them benefit of the doubt.
Home against Kentucky.
Kentucky's terrible.
Yeah. Pavia, Magic.
At Tennessee.
Loss.
That's 5-7.
They're getting to 6, hon.
So it's been said.
They're getting to 6.
It's been said. It's been written. They're 5
they're getting
and
to
7.
6.
Coach Lee, anchor down. All right, Chris Blair next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Auctioner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
Crime has serious consequences, but anyone can make a mistake. If you find yourself in trouble with the law, know that you have rights, and it's okay to demand them. The law offices of O.C. Brown are here to protect you and your rights. Felony or misdemeanor, DUI or drug charge. No matter what crime you're accused of, you still have rights. Let the law offices of O.C. Brown uphold them. Call 225-343-1111. Your law firm for a lifetime.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Family owned and community driven.
Service Chevrolet Cadillac, a legacy you can trust since 1972. Service Chevrolet Cadillac, our family serving your family.
For over 50 years.
When it comes to choosing energy for your family and your home, make the smart choice with natural gas. You can count on efficient and affordable natural gas to keep you comfortable and reduce your environmental impact to help protect our planet. Together, we're fueling our energy future. Atmos Energy.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
We'll have Joe Healey coming up here in 15 minutes, setting the table for the SEC baseball weekend. Joe's usually with us in the first hour on Thursdays, but had a prior. Was good enough to give us some heads up on that, and we were able to shift him back into hour number 2. So Joe and the crew at D1 Baseball had a spirited discussion about who the number 1 team in the country should be, Tennessee or LSU, and so we'll get Joe's thoughts on that whole situation. But this is the time of the week where we talk to the voice of the Tigers. Chris Blair will be on the call for LSU and Texas A&M coming up on Saturday inside the PMAC. One of those Maroon teams will show up, and Chris will be there. Chris, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
How was the trip up to the Bluegrass? How was Rupp Arena?
Oh, it was Rupp Arena. It was a team that I didn't feel good about the matchup for a number of reasons. One, it was senior night, and I looked it up that afternoon. Kentucky's been honoring their seniors since 1967, and now they're 53-6. So that's a tough one. And it's also, sandwiched where, they got embarrassed on Saturday by Auburn inside Rupp Arena. That doesn't happen often. And then they got to go to Missouri, this weekend. And while I think, already with 9 conference wins that are good into the NCAA tournament, I think the Cats were more about trying to figure out where they get seated, not only in Nashville, but obviously in the NCAA. So there was plenty of motivation for Kentucky. And after a 2-0 lead early for LSU, it was just an onslaught of blue. Next thing you know, you look up, it's 15-2, and then it's 50-23 at the half, and just kind of slipped away early, and there was no chance to even climb back in.
I'm curious, after watching the SEC for 17 games now, you and Coach Brady from courtside, like have you noticed the level of play elevating since you've gotten to Baton Rouge?
Oh, without question. It's when I got here in December of 2015, there was already talk that the SEC had made moves and were really working behind the scenes with their conference partners to improve men's basketball because it's a goldmine financially. And it certainly helps. Football is the key driver, to make no mistake about that. But, when a league can get multiple teams in the NCAA tournament and multiple teams go deep into the, Final Four, that's good for the conference. And they made a very calculated move to improve basketball in this league. And, basically 10 years later, that's what you're looking at, a dominant league that really is great top to bottom, and it's not as top-heavy as it used to be. And when you look at teams like, Florida, which I think may be the best-looking built roster, Auburn obviously spent most of the time as number 1. They're certainly, they've got inside, they've got outside, they've got guys who multiple 1,000-point scorers and guys who are 22, 23 years old. It's a very heavy team. It's veterans, very talented team. And then when you mix in some of the true freshmen, many of which in this league are going to be first-round picks, that just goes to show you how tough this league is. And I've watched it get better over the last 8-9 years.
How many teams do you think could be Final Four good? I've been on record. I think that Florida and Auburn are national championship good. I can't quite get on board with Tennessee and Alabama because of one side of the floor hurting them a little bit. But as far as the Final Four goes, I think I could probably make a case for 5 or 6.
Yeah, I think 5 or 6 probably have the opportunity. I think Auburn and Florida, to be honest with you, if they don't make it to the Final Four, and that's not cutting down the nets and winning a title, but I think it's a disappointing year the way those rosters have been built and as well as they have played, and the level of competition and how they've handled that competition. And then I think you're probably right with Tennessee and Alabama. I think Tennessee suffers sometimes from a scoring standpoint, and I think Alabama suffers on the defensive end, and again, at times relies too heavily on the three-point shot, and you pick a night where you're not shooting well. I think that's what's hurt Alabama really over the last 3 or 4 seasons of being able to win a national title. Is just you got to be able to have that shot going, for multiple nights to get through this tournament. But I think you could make an argument. And frankly, after watching Kentucky in person, and I've seen them play a ton on TV, they also live and die with a three-point shot. But when they're on, like they were on Tuesday night, there's not many teams in the country going to beat them.
Yeah, Mark Pope's done a good job with him offensively for sure. Let's transition over to baseball, Chris. I know you've been paying attention as you've been in and out with hoops as well, but I've watched Derek Curiel now for 3 weeks, and it feels like he's not going to slow down anytime soon. What's your impression been of the young freshman?
Yeah, he's phenomenal. I mean, I think we talked about it last week. I just think his ability to slow the game down, and again, we'll see once you hit SEC competition and the pitching, not only is very good on the starting end, but very good and deep throughout. We'll see. And again, there's a ton of freshman players you can go back, and you probably much more than I, and talk about sensational freshman career. But he's certainly off to that. That's for sure. I think. For me, coming off the last couple of games, having watched from afar, I'm tickled for Josh Pearson because here's a guy that I think has had some big moments in his career, decided to come back another season. I'm sure a lot of it had to do to be able to play with his younger brother, which they haven't done a lot. But he also knew, hey, look, I was on the last couple of years, I've been on a team with pretty good talent, and I've not been able to be the everyday guy, but I certainly have contributed. It speaks a lot to his team mentality, which I certainly applaud him for. But of all the people on this roster coming in, you knew he had to know, I've got to earn every minute if I want to get at bats and get innings in the field. And I think here of late, he's put up a pretty good argument that whether you want him in left field, right field, or second base, it's kind of hard to take him out of the lineup. So I think I'm impressed with the way he has attacked his final year here at LSU. Is I know how tough it's going to be to get minutes on the field, and I've got to go out and every opportunity I got to make the most of it. So I've been thrilled with watching the way he has played of late, and I think it's going to be hard for coach to take him out of the lineup.
You watched Stephen Milam play a lot last year. Now he's moved over to shortstop and has played that flawlessly to this point, 3 weeks into the season. What have you seen from him on the defensive side? Because I've been impressed. No surprise whatsoever. I mean, Jay joked with me many a time last year about, Dad, wherever you want to put him. I've got confidence, put him anywhere in the field. And again, he's one of those freshmen I talk about that you just kept waiting last year for them to, okay, he's going to sit back some. He can't have this type of season. And frankly, I think Stephen got stronger as the season went on, may have been the best player, one of the best players on the team, when the season ended in Chapel Hill. So yeah, he's the real deal, man. I mean, you talk about a baseball junkie. That guy's life revolves around baseball and has for a long, long time, and that's why you can tell he's fundamentally sound. Wherever you put him, he knows the right footwork. I just think he's impressive, and it's great to have him, wearing the purple and gold, that's for sure. You've been around Jay Johnson since he got here. How do you think he feels about handing the ball to a freshman in Kason Evans with the game on the line at the end? He's kind of shown a tendency to do that now for the last 2 weeks. That's the guy they're going to when it gets tight. Yeah, I mean, being around Jay, I mean, he talked about it in his first year about this is the type of, I've understood this is the type of arms you have to be successful in this league. And now having gone through the gauntlet of the SEC and having gone through the rigors of making it all the way to a national title game in Omaha, I just think he now has the people on his roster that he envisioned he would need 3+ years ago, which is I've got to be able to find these freshman arms that are the best across the country so that I have no problem whatsoever, 100% faith to put the ball in his hands with the game on the line. I think he's just that's where this program has developed into, and it's not by accident. It was by design from Coach Johnson. LSU and Texas A&M Saturday in the PMAC 3 o'clock tip. You can hear the voice of the Tigers, Chris Blair, along with John Brady on pregame at 2:30 here in Baton Rouge. That's Eagle 98.1, our sister station. He'll be on baseball duty for some of the other of the weekend as well. Chris, we appreciate the time. We'll talk next week. You got it, buddy. That is Chris Blair. Always appreciate a little bit of his time. Matt McMahon show in the books for the year, and they'll have Jay Johnson show coming up in a couple of weeks. I believe that's on Monday nights, but we'll check with Chris next week when we talk to him when that will air for the first time. It's right after the first weekend of SEC play, so looking very much forward to that. And again, we appreciate Chris giving us a little bit of time on Thursdays. Step aside, Joe Healey, D1 Baseball's SEC Extra team, best team in the country, Tennessee or LSU? We'll ask him next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is the website. Every car that is on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. Every single model in the Genesis line, from the entry level to the highest end vehicle, come with the same basic safety features. They're not going to cut corners on safety. You can get behind the wheel of a Genesis. You'll feel how comfortable it is. You can see how stylish the design is. You can see all the bells and whistles that they've got in the console. The brand ambassadors will walk you through all of it. But what you can't see from the outside is just how safe the vehicle is. All of them were given the IIHA top safety pick. Some were given the top safety pick plus. You can be guaranteed when you're driving in Genesis that you're in one of the safest vehicles on the road, and it's a luxury model as well. Go by and see them on Airline at Pico across from Women's Hospital. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge. You can find them online at genesisofbatonrouge.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
You gotta believe in a dream. Believe. You gotta believe in a dream. Believe. You gotta believe. My whole team on wild.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one. You. Auctioner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
Crime has serious consequences, but anyone can make a mistake. If you find yourself in trouble with the law, know that you have rights, and it's okay to demand them. The law offices of O.C. Brown are here to protect you and your rights. Felony or misdemeanor, DUI or drug charge. No matter what crime you're accused of, you still have rights. Let the law offices of O.C. Brown uphold them. Call 225-343-1111. Your law firm for a lifetime.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Working towards the weekend, Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge. On Thursdays, we talk to our guy, Joe Healey from D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Team. See their podcast, Highway to Hoover, wherever you find your podcast, and certainly subscribe up to D1 Baseball's SEC Extra package for all the college baseball news. Tigers, #1 in the country as we move into the final week of non-conference play. Joe gives us some time here on this Thursday. Joe, how are you?
I'm doing well. I, heard it a little bit from Tennessee fans, given that we have LSU #1, but I guess that's to be expected.
Look, I was going to ask you that because I saw you kind of mediating a discussion between Kendall Rogers and Aaron Fitt where y'all were talking about who was going to be the #1 team in the country, and both of them felt like it was LSU's at this current juncture. Where do you stand on that situation? I realize it's not all that significant, but it is a local story, so I'll let you talk about where you see those two teams at the top of the country.
Yeah, I think it's close. I mean, I think they have a lot of things in common, frankly, with why they are where they are. For both teams, what stands out to me most is, the incredible depth. And I get that depth always looks good in early March, more so than it does in May. But both teams are really, really stout in terms of just guys they trust going to. I think from an LSU perspective, I think about Michael Braswell, a guy who started every single game last year, and Jay Johnson was steadfast in that. And this year, he's just kind of a piece. And I don't mean that disrespectfully to him. I just mean that there's so much depth that he's a guy that's, in a platoon situation. Tennessee's kind of the same way, where they have freshmen like Levi Clark, Jay Abernathy, Manny Marin, who they didn't necessarily need to be good right away, but they're awesome right away. LSU has a similar thing with Derek Curiel. So anyway, regardless, they have a lot of things in common. And to me, the difference between 1 and 2 is a lot smaller than the difference between 2 and kind of the rest of the field right now. To me, those two teams have separated themselves from the pack. And LSU got, in part, our number one vote, honestly, because we had them ahead of Tennessee to begin the season. And through 3 weeks of non-conference play, we just haven't seen enough necessarily to just flip that order, because right now it looks like maybe Tennessee's playing better, but we just haven't seen enough to know.
I'm interested in you saying that about LSU kind of separating with Tennessee, because I'm looking at this and trying to be a little bit guarded, because last year LSU looked really good in February, and they went to Houston and won 3 games in a tournament, kind of like they did this past weekend, and then they showed up to play the big bad SEC and started 3-12. So what gives you confidence that LSU right now is I mean, it's the depth obviously, but do they have the star power? Do you feel like Cade Anderson is an ace at this point?
I do. So on that second question, yeah, I really do. And it's not just from the numbers now, because you're right. Like, through 3 weeks against the first 2 weeks, not great competition. We can't read too much into the statistics, but it's not just my eyes. It's the eyes of scouts and evaluators saying, yeah, this guy's the real deal. So there's that element there. But yes, it's the depth, but to me, it's specifically what they have depth in. So on the mound, like, I don't want to just assume they're set with Ianson and Anderson and Shores, but those 3 guys have been super solid. Kason Evans has been a real revelation. William Schmidt, he's got some things to clean up maybe in terms of command, but, statistically he's been awesome and his stuff has been great. They haven't had Gavin Guidry back. And to me, if you're talking about where do you need depth in college baseball, you know this as well as I do, at some point, whether it's in a regional or whether it's in Omaha or what have you, if you're going to be a team that makes a deep postseason run, there's going to be games where you're going to have to turn the ball over to your 9th arm. Mm-hmm. And if your 9th arm is somebody like what LSU has kind of at the back of their bullpen, you're going to be in a lot better shape than basically any other team in the country. So the mound side of it is actually what stands out to me most when we talk about depth and how is this team different.
We figured 3 weeks ago A&M would be in this discussion. They are not right now. They seem to be kind of wandering lost. If I gave you a crisp $5 bill to wager whether or not they were going to be a regional host team, where would you wager that?
I would still go yes, but I have some waning confidence in them. And it's not, to me, it's not just that it looks kind of bad or the bad body language or any of that. Like, I do think maybe there's been an underestimation of how valuable some of the leadership they've had the last few years. They had guys like Austin Boast and Ryan Targott, who weren't always necessarily the best players on the team, but they were solid contributors who had good heads on their shoulders and were leaders in a way that I'm not sure A&M has that right now. That's not to say it's a team of knuckleheads. I don't think that's true either, but I do think they are kind of looking around saying, like, who is our table setter here? Who's the guy that sets the tone? Maybe it's Jay Slaviolette from a on-field standpoint, but I don't know, what kind of leader he is. So that's kind of what stands out to me there. I also think, it's first-time head coach, and this is the first time Michael Early, who's been a very hands-on hitting coach for his entire career, this is the first time he's been looked at as, okay, yeah, you're still working with hitters, but your time is also going to be divided up with talking to Jason Kelly about what you're doing on the mound and coming up with game plans and scouting reports, and you're doing, more media. Just there's a lot of things pulling for your attention as a head coach in the SEC, much less at one that was a preseason number 1. And I have to wonder if that's just kind of an adjustment for everybody, because the offense has been the issue for A&M, frankly. And I have to wonder if some element of that is just that it's a different dynamic with Michael Early now being the head coach as opposed to being mostly solely focused on being the hitting coach.
I am higher than Florida than I think some people are, and that's hard to say because they're number 7 in the country, but I'm impressed, as always, with the stuff that they have on the mound. I've watched a little bit of that, and then I feel like they're swinging the bats pretty well as well. Brody today has been awesome. So where are you on the Gators?
I'm generally with you, but I will say they have been bitten by the injury bug worse than most so far this season, and so I do start to worry about a little of that. So Cade Kurland, I believe it was last weekend, separated his shoulder. And as you know, it's not just as simple as you can pop that sucker back in there and you're good to go. Like there's a rehab period that goes with that. Pierce Coppola came out of his start early last weekend. Initially, it was kind of brushed off as like, yeah, it was nothing and he felt fine. We just took him out. There's been increasing concern in the days since that maybe it's more than what we initially thought. Kyle Jones, the big transfer from Stetson, who I loved in the fall, has played only 4 games this year. It's not looking great with him injury-wise. And so, look, they're still really talented. Brody Donay, you're right, has looked like maybe an SEC Player of the Year type of guy so far. So I still really like their club, but I'm going to need to see what the next or especially the first couple weeks of SEC play look like with a slightly more beat-up roster than I think we anticipated.
LSU welcomes Missouri in the opener, so we're not going to talk a lot about that right now. But Texas looms on the other side of that. LSU will go to Austin. They're off to a 10-1 start in year one under Jen Schlossnagle. How do you feel about his first Longhorns team through 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think it reminds me a little of Schlossnagle's first A&M team, which is when you look at the roster and you kind of shrug and you're just like, okay, like there's some nice players here. But I do think this is where coaching matters, and I can't put my finger on it. I'm not in the locker room with them. I'm not on the team bus with them or in the clubhouse, whatever. But the guy goes places and he just wins right away, sometimes with less than ideal rosters. And right now their pitching is fairly thin. I mean, they're relying in the bullpen heavily on Ruger Riojas, who, no disrespect, was a very good reliever at UTSA, but he was at UTSA. They're asking him to do a totally different thing now. Their rotation is, probably an arm short. They've used Cade Bing on Sundays, and he's not been particularly good. And other than that, they're looking at Jared Spencer, a guy who was a reliever at Indiana State, and then Luke Harrison, who's been injured most of the past 2 years. Now, Spencer and Harrison have been pretty good so far, but does that change when you start facing big-time offenses, big-time lineups like LSU's? The offense is old, so I like that part of it. That's the part that most reminds me of his early A&M his first A&M team, because it's like just a really old, kind of unsexy position player group that's just going to battle and put together long at-bats, and they've got some power. They do a lot of things well, but whether or not they get enough pitching, I think, is going to determine whether they do like Schlossnagle's first A&M team and get to Omaha, or if this is just kind of a nice top 20-ish team that might host, might be a 2 seed, could maybe win a regional, but probably isn't a national title contender.
Joe Healey's our guest, D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Team. He's with us every single Thursday. He's kind of setting the table for the SEC weekend to come. I thought y'all had a good line on Highway to Hoover calling this SoCon Saturday, which is a football reference. So right before Rivalry Weekend, they play a bunch of teams and beat them by 50. And this weekend in the Southeastern Conference, not a lot of real sexy matchups. The tournaments are in the rearview mirror. A lot of teams just kind of resetting before conference play. Is there anything specifically that you're kind of looking at this weekend, or is it just kind of let's get to next week?
Yeah, I think the latter is definitely true. I mean, I'm going to see Troy play this weekend because that's a top 20 team, and there's not a ton like in the SEC, as you mentioned. So it's like, hey, let's go see a team I might not get to see otherwise. But I will say there are 2 series I kind of have my eye on. One is Xavier and Vanderbilt for a couple of reasons. One, the last time Vanderbilt hosted 2023, the team that eliminated them was Xavier. So there's a little scar tissue there. It's also an older team, so a lot of the guys who are on the Xavier roster now were also on that team in 2023. So that's interesting to me. And Vanderbilt's offense, after looking good early, much like Arkansas, everybody's like hyper vigilantly watching their lineups. They were pretty good early, but they've backslid. Last weekend, they lost 2 games to USC and UConn by scoring a combined 3 runs. Yeah. They lost both those games. So that's one. The other is Kentucky and Wofford. Obviously, LSU fans know all about Wofford. They saw them last year. Really scrappy bunch. They're going to steal a bunch of bases. They're going to take their walks. Their pitching doesn't really have velocity, but they throw a bunch of strikes. That's a team I think that can give Kentucky trouble. I still don't know what to make of Kentucky yet. They're winning games, which I think is, my hunch on Kentucky is that while they're obviously not as good as they've been the last couple of years, the idea that they're just going to go back to being kind of irrelevant, I don't think is right. I think they'll be better than what we think of as Kentucky baseball if you go back 5 to 7 years. But I really don't know how good or not they are. I think we'll learn a little something about them this weekend because I think Wofford is roughly a regional caliber team.
Enjoy some Troy baseball. We'll talk next week before the SEC gets cranked up in earnest. Thanks, Joe.
All right, Hunt. See you, buddy.
Joe Healey, D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Team. You can read about all the SEC teams over at the SEC Extra tab, and you can get their podcast a couple times a week, Highway to Hoover. It's he and Mark Etheridge. They do an awesome job, and we appreciate Joe for being flexible with us this week. because he was out at the beginning of the hour where we usually have him, so we backed him up a little bit, and he was able to accommodate us, and we certainly appreciate that. So let's take one more time out and get out of here. It is a Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Look, sometimes you do a bathroom remodel because you just don't like what you see and you'd like to upgrade. Sometimes you need to. Sometimes you've got a situation where you've got some faulty equipment in your bathroom, whether it's plumbing, something in the shower that just doesn't work anymore. And if that's the case, don't just call the local handyman to come up there and see if he can't kind of put something that fixes it for a minute there. Just go get One Bath and Closets and get the thing fixed. He's got a master plumber that's available to you. They're a licensed contractor, bonded, insured. They can come in and handle your plumbing issues with the toilet in the bathroom and the shower. And they can certainly handle your flooring and all of that as well. They put vanities in. They can do tubs, tub-to-shower conversions, all that kind of thing. Again, sometimes it's a luxury you want to upgrade. Sometimes it's a necessity because what you've got is broken. Either way, you want to make sure that One Bath and Closets is your one-stop shop. Get the free consultation with David Duvall and his team this week. Just set it up. Go to OneBathAndClosets.com and get that process started. They've got financing options available, 18 months, 0%, same as cash if you qualify. It's One Bath and Closets. Go find them at OneBathAndClosets.com.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared toward seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one. You. Auctioner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
Crime has serious consequences, but anyone can make a mistake. If you find yourself in trouble with the law, know that you have rights, and it's okay to demand them. The law offices of O.C. Brown are here to protect you and your rights. Felony or misdemeanor, DUI or drug charge. No matter what crime you're accused of, you still have rights. Let the law offices of O.C. Brown uphold them. Call 225-343-1111. Your law firm for a lifetime.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Family owned and community driven.
Service Chevrolet Cadillac, a legacy you can trust since 1972. Service Chevrolet Cadillac, our family serving your family.
For over 50 years.
At Bayou Automotive, we believe in a sales process that puts you first. We want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram be your trusted partners in finding your perfect vehicle. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
At Atmos Energy, our Smart Choice solutions help customers save energy and emissions with rebates up to $500 off high-efficiency natural gas appliances.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Join us at the Louisiana Outdoor Expo at the Lamar Dixon Expo Center next week, March 14th through the 16th. Head over to our front or back booth and register for your chance to win a U10 New Canoe, a compact, versatile kayak perfect for fishing and hunting adventures. Visit 1045ESPN.com for details. Also, join LSU Athletics and the Tiger Athletic Foundation for Bayou Traditions' second annual gala of Louisiana Saturday Night featuring Jordan Davis on the field in Tiger Stadium Saturday, May 3rd. We are giving you on-field access. Register to win a spot at our table at 1045ESPN.com. Support LSU student athletes NIL opportunities and reserve your table at lsutaf.org/events.
All right, so earlier today, I put in a refund request with an airline.
Okay.
Because we know that last weekend I elected to stay home instead of fly to Dallas for the tournament.
Yes, you did that.
Well, I was gonna bring my golf clubs, and I had to bring the equipment for the show, so I was gonna have to check a bag.
Yes.
So I paid for that when I checked in.
Okay.
And I didn't go. We
Okay.
canceled the flight.
Yes.
And I put in the refund request today. How do we think that's gonna go? I have low confidence.
Well, I would say it depends.
They have record that I canceled the flight. Like, that is very much there. And I put on the little comments, said canceled flight, wife had labor symptoms.
Yes.
Which is not a lie. It looks like a lie.
Yeah. Well,
but it's not.
I think it depends. I think it does depend on who the airline was. Now, I don't think we need to disparage
We're not going to do that.
Who it was. However, it
if
depends.
they give me the refund, I'll give them a shout.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I think you'll get it.
I would have lied and said my wife had the baby, so I couldn't make it.
I don't have a birth certificate. I get like George Costanza on Seinfeld. They did a death certificate from the funeral he apparently went to.
Okay,
I don't have that, so
have
I'm trying to keep it between the buoys. She did have symptoms. I did stay home. We did cancel the flight. I'd like to get my $35 back off my credit card.
I think you'll get it, huh? It's not that. That's not that much. I think.
See, just because you said it's $35, I think they're gonna hustle you even more now.
How about this?
No.
This is worse. 16 days ago, I believe I got scammed.
Oh.
Little bit of an Instagram type deal. Was scrolling through and I saw this incredible deal on shirts.
Hunt.
I bought 6 shirts for $37.
Hunt, are you serious?
He was like, "It's a steal."
It's looking good.
You're actually.
I did not get a confirmation email. It did not come. So I've contacted the credit card. They're checking on it, and I've put the freeze on that. So we'll see how that goes.
You just did what my grandmother does on Facebook when she sees ads and just.
I mean, it's a great deal. I could use some new golf shirts.
Yeah, of course it's a great deal. It's fake.
Shirts.
It's a great deal because it's not real.
I know the dude was like, "Oh yeah, that's a great deal, all right."
When I bought them, my wife was asleep. I was on the couch. I was like, I'm not gonna say anything about this. I literally put in my group text. I was like, I think I just got 6 shirts for $37. If I did, that's great. I may have also gotten scammed and my credit card is compromised. There have been no additional charges thus far in the 16 days, but the shirts have not shown up. And when I tried to call the number that's attached to my bank statement, it did not pick up. So
that's you're wow. I am astounded, Hunt, by.
But I took care of those 2 things this morning outside of riding my spring football preview and getting the show ready.
That's good. Did you get a run in as well?
I did get a run in this morning.
Okay, that's good.
It was 39 degrees when I hit the streets this morning.
Yeah, it was very cold. I thought we were out of the woods with that, but apparently not.
Dustin B says tough scene, Hunt, scammed by the Cambodians. I don't know if it was from
well,
Cambodia
who knows?
or not.
Who knows?
I don't want to disparage the lovely Cambodians, but I don't believe that I did the right thing. I think that I've made a mistake that someone who's in their upper 70s may or probably wouldn't.
Yes, that is exactly what you did.
Look, I'm not too proud. I was trying to make a deal.
It's a good deal. It's a good deal.
Trying to make a deal. We got time to do take it or leave it?
Yes.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
All right, first one here. Some people looking forward to this. Some people not expecting much. I'm in the latter camp there. Happy Gilmore 2 apparently is going to be coming out in July. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. I'm going to watch it.
I'll take it.
I mean, what's going to happen? I mean, so obviously his grandmother's long gone at this point.
Yes.
So we're not going to bring her back. obviously his kid's going to be involved in some capacity in like a long drive competition of some sort.
I think
maybe his kid's a hockey player.
I think it's very obvious where this movie's going to go. Okay, he's going to have been retired probably for a couple of years, maybe.
Yeah,
and something is going to bring him out of retirement. I don't know if it's
PGA Tour champions.
I don't know if it's going to be Shooter McGavin is going to be like calling him out and making him come back, or it's going to be something obnoxious. And he's going to have to come back and play, and then he's going to go, So
I think his kid's a hockey player who takes his skate off and tries to stab somebody.
Maybe his son plays hockey, and then
he's got a kid. He's got a kid with the PGA Tour PR lady.
Yeah, and so he's got to teach this kid how to play golf.
Is she in it?
I don't know. Actually, I don't know. I haven't looked at the cast yet.
Wife?
I have not looked at the cast for who is going to be in it, but. Maybe somebody's going to end up losing a hand.
Is the alligator going to be in there with one eye? The alligators live a long time. I think. Is that going to be in there?
Yeah, of course. All right,
I'll probably watch it.
All right, let's get to those last one real quick. Oregon and Dan Lanning, 6-year contract, nearly $11 million per year. That's Ross Dellinger with that reporting. Lanning will be in Eugene for that full contract. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it.
I
think he's doing a good job. I think that Phil Knight's probably not going to make it that long. We'll see. What was it? How many years you say?
6.
Phil Knight can make it 6 years.
Yeah,
he can make it 6. And I think he'll do fine. I don't get the sense that he's ticketed for the NFL, but you never know. You'd have to take a pay cut to go to the NFL probably.
Yeah.
I think he'll make it. I think they got a good coach. I think he's doing a good job. So that's it for Take It or Leave It here on this Thursday. We've got a busy show tomorrow. Preston Guy will be here. We'll preview LSU spring football. We'll also preview LSU and North Alabama at the box this weekend, as well as LSU and Texas A&M in the season finale for men's basketball. Appreciate Chris Blair for stopping by. Thanks to Joe Healey as well. Luke Johnson was with us in hour number 1. If you missed any of our show today, you can catch it on demand wherever you find your sound. Just search Hunt Palmer Show. All your Saints coverage, Hunt on Saints. All your LSU coverage, Hunt on LSU. Can't be any simpler than that. Make it happen. All right, we're going to get out of here. Matt's going to drive you home next on After Further Review. We will see you tomorrow, same time and same place for a Friday edition. God, we love Friday editions of the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
The Hunt